What is going on, BookTube? It is Let's Talk Books. My name's David, and today we are going to talk about The Devils. I've got a two-part video. The first half today, we're going to look at a non-spoiler view of my thoughts on this book, and for the second half, we'll talk about The Devils with spoilers, which makes it a lot easier if I'm being honest. And if you're new around here, which most of you are, because I'm brand new around here, please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me as I get started here on YouTube. But with that, let's jump right into The Devils. This book was freaking awesome. Maybe I shouldn't say that right away. Is that gonna bury the lead? But in any case, we'll look at this book through the lens of characters, plots and twists, dialogue, world building, and the ending. And for this first part of the video, I won't spoil any of it. So with that, let's jump right in. The Devils follows a cast of misfits that are going from point A to point B and have to jump over a myriad of hurdles along the way to accomplish a task at point B. And along the way, he is giving backstories on these characters, making you fall in love with them, making them fall in love with one another, making them fall in love with other characters, side characters. So to give you a little sneak peek into what this book is, of course it's called The Devils. It's a grimdark by Joe Abercrombie, so there's a lot of gore, but mostly it's a hilarious tale, which is very surprising. I wouldn't even classify this, honestly, as a horror. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a cozy read, but when I was opening up this book to jump into it, and it's 550 pages long, I felt cozy. I felt like I was just there with the characters, falling in love with them, wanting to get to know them even more. And he did a fantastic job of, whilst keeping the world dark and grimy and gory, it was just a hilarious tale full of a hilarious cast of misfits. And did I mention there's 8 of them in this book? So on the topic of characters, one thing I have to say is Glatka from his other book series, The Blade Within, I thought was a character that could not be topped. I loved Glatka. I thought he was written excellent. And I have to say, with The Devils, of which there are 8 main characters, I think he did it 8 times. I think he topped that character 8 times for me. So all of these characters have extremely distinguished traits. And if you watch one of my shorts, you'll notice I said, when I finished part 1 of the books, like 100 pages in, I said, man, these characters have such strong traits. It actually worries me that maybe they're too defined and won't have any character development along the way because of how defined they are. It started to feel like an anthology, I think that's the word, where it's just recurring characters, and I thought the second book might just be the same characters going on a different adventure. That does not appear to be the case, which I love. And by the time I finished part 2 of the book, I no longer felt that way. Yes, they had strong, defined characters, and it was very obvious which character was the funny one, which one had ADD, which one took himself too serious, which one was guilty of, or had feelings of guilt, which one was XYZ, you know, and he managed to write in character development whilst giving them strong character traits right from the start. So that was awesome. I was very much looking forward to seeing how certain elements of relationships played out. I won't go into it too much, but that's that on the topic of characters. On the topic of plot, like I said, it's an A to B whilst going from point A to point B whilst overcoming a myriad of hurdles. So not unheard of as far as plot goes, but I thought he did an excellent job of writing it. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was played out. There were some recurring themes within the plot where we'll save that for the spoiler part of the book. But overall, the plot was very enjoyable. There wasn't any crazy twists with respect to getting from point A to point B and having that be the goal and giving you a payoff in that regard. I'm not saying the payoff's what you expect, but it ties a nice bow on it. Okay, on the topic of dialogue, we all know Joe Abercrombie is a character-first writer, and his dialogue in The Devils was top-notch, hilarious. Each character had their own feel to it. Their banter back and forth was hilarious. They acted in accordance with who they were as a person. He does subvert that on occasion, but in a way that makes sense. So overall, the dialogue is great. Like I said, this book is weird because it's called The Devils. It's in a gory, horror-filled world where horrible things are happening, and it's extremely dangerous, but I felt cozy when I was reading this because of how funny it was. I had my coffee each morning and then at night when I'm reading it, and I had a smile on my face as I was reading it. So, okay. On the topic of world building, again, Joe Abercrombie did a fantastic job. I've got really nothing but good things to say about this book. When we get to the spoiler part, where I'm kind of talking more freely about this book, I'll talk about in more detail why I thought some things could have been better, but overall the world building was fantastic. And one thing that I thought he did really well was it's a religious book. The main characters are a cast of misfits, in this case, the devils, going on a journey, and it's a very religious world. And so you might think he's poking fun at religion in the real world, but he made enough changes to the religion of this world to kind of subvert that. So I don't think he was poking fun at religion in the real world. He switched it up enough to make it very clear that this was just the religious, world of the devils. And it seems, at times, of course, he's poking fun at religion, but it's all in good humor, and he changed it up enough where you don't feel like he's truly poking at any, thing in the real world. Okay, and then the ending, again, spoiler-free on this front. The ending was great. I thought he wrapped it up nice. Didn't give you everything you wanted, which you don't always want in a book. There's going to be a second and third book of this trilogy coming out, so I don't think he gave me everything I wanted with this book, but he gave me enough, and he wrapped it up nice, and I already looked up the next date of the next book. It's looking like May or June of 2026, which isn't too far off for the next book. So that is my spoiler-free review of The Devils. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's freaking awesome, especially if you like Joe Abercrombie and grimdark. Okay, let's get into... There's so many characters, I had to write them down on so I can go through them one by one here on the spoiler version. So, BookTube, if you've made it this far, or if anyone's watching this video, I hope so. If you made it this far, we are now entering spoiler territory. Again, we are entering spoiler territory. If you keep watching this video, the book will potentially be ruined for you if you plan on reading it. So we are entering spoiler territory. Okay, with that, let's talk a little bit about the characters of this book. Joe smacked it out of the park. This book was freaking awesome. So I've got them all written down here. We've got Alex, the main character, in a sense, kind of the one we're getting from point A to point B. So again, this plot was Alex, this thief, this lowly person from the holy city, gets picked up by a duke in the opening scene. She's running, she's getting beat up, she's all slimy with fish guts as she's sliding under a merchant table. She gets caught, she's getting beat up, they're asking for her money, and a duke says, "Stop. You are the princess of Troy, the rightful heir to the throne." And with that, we are pushed into the plot where there's this reluctant main character who he builds empathy for in a great way, who needs to go on this adventure to be crowned Empress of Troy, of the Eastern world, to bring the two churches together. Okay, so that's the main character, Alex. She's awesome. She maintains a lot of that thievy, ferrety character throughout the book. You've got Baron the vampire. the werewolf, Brother Diaz, Baptiste, Balthazar, even Droxy, my favorite character, Jacob of Thorn, and Sonny, my other favorite character. And throughout this, the characters, he clearly like kind of makes the polar opposites kind of love each other. You know, he puts together some unlikely romantic entanglements. Like my favorite in terms of romantic entanglements is kind of a tie between Alex and Sonny, the elf, who's this introvert who, you know, struggles with people, and Alex, who's this lowly thief. That one really surprised me. You know, he put a scene in there early on of them sitting down outside of camp, kind of away from camp, and Alex was preparing food for Sonny. So I knew he was hinting at something, but I thought he was hinting at a friendship, like an unlikely friendship. But that evolved, and ultimately they ended up kissing, and the rest is history. So Alex and Sonny was a great romance in this book. I loved it. But my tied for my favorite, or maybe my favorite, was Brother Diaz and the werewolf. So Brother Diaz, this highly religious person on this trip who's always writing the circle of the religion, you know, doing his thing in the book, falls in love with a werewolf who is not shy, will sleep with anybody, has that wolf in her literally, and is just a very dirty, I don't know if ADHD is the right word. I think really what's interesting about the werewolf character was he wrote it as if she had ADD and was forgetting and always couldn't look at the past, just, you know, keep looking forward because you can't think about the past too much. It felt very ADD-like, but really it was kind of trauma-induced when you really peel it back a layer. I mean, man, they hinted at the fact that she was going to potentially, or Joe hinted at the fact that she was going to potentially hurt someone very early on, but she was joking about it. They're like, oh, what happened to that old priest? And I think Vigga, the werewolf, was like, oh, I ate him. And they laughed, and it was like a very early on scene. And I kind of let that pass over. I was like, oh, that was a funny scene. But then later on, when, huge spoiler alert, if you don't want a mega spoiler, stop watching right now. So later on, when Vigga eats Baptiste in the final battle, and Balthazar Ivandraxi was falling in love with her, and, you know, finally was like these character traits of like extreme selfishness were kind of falling off him, and he was kind of like, I can't wait to show Baptiste what I just did. I just, you know, conquered this sorcerer, and I can't wait to go back and kind of brag about it to Baptiste because, you know, I've never gotten one on her. And then he gets back, and Brother Diaz and the werewolf are crying over her body. Brutal, dude. I was so mad at Joe for that. Oh, I loved that character, man. Okay, so you know, we don't have to go through all the characters, but loved all of them. I mean, geez, Joe, you're a genius. Okay, in terms of the plot and the twists, very kind of not stock standard, you know, but there's 4 bosses, 4 cousins of Alex that he had to, she had to, and the group had to overcome. And they did one by one in, you know, epic battles, or in the case of the 4th cousin, a brilliant twist. That was fine. One thing I didn't love, you know, a lot of the scenes were great. I thought they were wrapped up nicely. The battles were great. But one thing that I didn't love was the illusionist house. It was like a puzzle for them to figure out how to get through this house, and he gave us, it was a genius way to give us a backstory on the characters, because they got stuck in those worlds in the illusionist house of like their greatest fear, and it was Jacob going through all these trials and tribulations, Sonny doing XYZ, you know, being at a party and no one noticing her. So he really did a brilliant job of that. But their goal in the illusionist house was to get this box for Baptiste's relative. I want to say father, but it was a relative. They had to get this box inside the illusionist house. And once he was done writing, you know, the flashbacks of them like facing their biggest fear, the box just appeared on the table and they grabbed it. And then the next scene was them giving the box to the relative. And I thought, hold up, that's it? They just give him the box and they get out of the illusionist house, no problem. I kind of thought he didn't wrap that up nicely. It kind of felt like you just forced their backstories on me one by one and then didn't really wrap up the illusionist house or the trials that they had to undergo to get out of that illusionist house. So that's very nitpicky. Like I said, I was loving this book. I couldn't wait to pick it up. But if I had to nitpick one scene or plot point that kind of bothered me, it would be the illusionist house and not wrapping that up in the perfect way for me. The dialogue was hilarious. I said this in the spoiler-free part of this video. This book, to me, was a comedy. Through and through, hilarious. A, dare I say, cozy, but the world wasn't cozy, but he made it cozy because of how hilarious the book was. World building, fantastic. Like I said, it's a religious world, but he does it in a very good way. It's, you know, it's a female savior in this case, which differs obviously from Christianity. And so because of that and some of the other differences, it was friendly, it was fun, it was a grimdark world still, but nothing too crazy. You could kind of understand the cities and the differing, you know, religious factions, and, you know, it wasn't tough to follow. The characters weren't hard to follow. The world wasn't hard to follow. I didn't even look at the map. I didn't feel it was really necessary. Sometimes when I'm reading fantasy books, I'm looking at the map the whole time. I'm flipping back to the map, like, where are we at? In this case, I didn't really care. They were going from point A to point B, entering cities. I'm semi-familiar with, you know, Europe and some of the cities that were being referenced, and I could see, you know, I looked at the map before starting the book, and I was like, that's where they're at. That's where they're trying to get to, and there's cities along the way. So it's not confusing at all. Honestly, the world map wasn't even needed, but still a cool piece of art. And then let's talk a little bit about the ending. Again, oh man, Vigga eating Baptiste, my heart sunk. I was so excited for Balthazar Ivan Draxi to get his love entanglement underway. You know, Alex had Sonny. Baron referenced his old wife throughout the book. He had Brother Diaz and the werewolf. And it was all great. And then he didn't give it to us. She got eaten, which was kind of hinted at earlier in the book, but I didn't pick it up. Or at least I didn't expect it. And you can't get everything you want out of an ending. And I think he did this in a really brilliant way, because I literally shut the book after that chapter and I was like, oh, come on, no. I wanted it for him so bad. And you kind of see him turn even more evil at the end. His revenge plot seems to thicken and kind of not in the joking way that it was throughout the whole book. So excited to see where that subplot goes on the second book. Excited to see if he brings Alex back now that she is Empress of Troy. So I want to see what Joe does with that. He introduced the new Baptiste in the last scene. So the replacement for Brother Diaz is in a carriage. You've got the new character that's replacing Baptiste in a carriage. He's the jack of all trades. And then she's the religious, completely opposite of Brother Diaz, which is interesting. And they're riding in the carriage, similar to the opening scene, to the main building in the Holy City to get another mission. So that is my rant on the Devils. This book is awesome. Read it if you like Joe Abercrombie. Read it if you like fantasy, and especially read it if you're watching this and it's September or October, because it's spooky season, baby, and it is time to bear down with some fun, unclean books like The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So that is my video on the Devils, what I have on deck. This is my next book for September, my best friend's Exorcism. I'm liking it so far. There's a ton of 80s references, and I was born in 1995, so kind of going over my head, but overall, it's a fun book so far. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe. I'm new around here. I love talking about books. I'm going to be, breaking down each book I read, talking about book hauls, doing the whole booktube thing. It would mean the world to me if you subscribed, and till next time.